Hello, I'm Ryan O'Connell, a certified financial risk manager, and in this video, I'll share my best tips on how to pass the FRM exams. These exams are challenging. They can be pretty difficult to study for, but easy to pass if you know what you're doing. So I've broken this video into 5 key tips that you can find in the chapters below if you're interested in a particular section. Other than that, let's dive right in. The first tip is to study lots of hours and to eliminate distractions. So the most important piece of this whole thing is just putting in a lot of hours, in my opinion. Surveys show that the average test taker studies 240 hours per part of the exam, and that's from the official website of the organization that offers these tests, GARP. You'll need to put in serious time to be one of the top half of test takers that passes. So make your study time count by eliminating distractions. I would even suggest figuring out what are the biggest time-wasting apps on your phone and just outright deleting those apps. And before you think, oh, this guy is just, all talk saying to delete the apps I like, this is my actual cell phone. So this has been a pretty easy way for me to find time for things that are less fun than, let's say, like social media and stuff, is just by figuring out ways to eliminate these distractions, because you just need a ton of time to pass these tests. Same with CFA. My second key tip is to work a lot of practice problems. I think with difficult tests like this, where they cover thousands and thousands of pages of text, we can get caught in this trap of spending a lot of time just reading the textbooks passively, and that actually might make us feel more comfortable, like it's a more comfortable way to learn, rather than working practice problems, failing them, getting them wrong, coming to the conclusion that we don't understand this topic as much as we maybe had initially thought that we did. So I would put it like this. Imagine you wanted to learn how to downhill ski. Would you go and rent out textbooks from the library that tell you how to downhill ski? Or would you be better off just going out on the hill, throwing on the skis, falling down a handful of times until you figure it out? In my opinion, the actual process of working practice problems is the version of learning how to downhill ski, where you just throw on the skis and hit the slopes. My third tip is to not use the official curriculum as provided by the organization GARP that hosts the exams. What I would suggest to use instead is third-party prep materials that will condense the information into more digestible, smaller bits. So the original textbooks are really, really dense and probably go into more detail than you really need to know to pass the exam. Probably go into far more minute details than you would really need to know. So what these third-party prep providers do oftentimes is they'll take, let's say, 300 pages of the original source material and condense it down into just 100 pages of the most testable material in that original 300 pages, so you can really get through the material a lot faster, but at the expense of paying more money to the prep provider that made the resources. And to add on to that, I have tons of videos on my channel covering FRM topics that are completely for free, so you can probably use a lot of the videos on my channel as a resource as well. My fourth key tip is focusing on spaced repetition and potentially even using flashcards for that. And a lot of evidence suggests that spaced repetition is the best method by which to lock information into your long-term memory, which is really what you need to do when you're trying to handle this volume of information. So spaced repetition is a process where basically, let's say you're reviewing, you want to memorize a piece of information, let's say a formula. Now, you would look at that formula the first time. Then maybe a week later, you would revisit and look at that formula again. And then after that, maybe in 3 weeks, you would revisit that formula. After that, maybe 3 months later, you'd revisit the same formula. So you're seeing the same concepts repetitively, but the space between the amount of times you're seeing them is getting increased each time, basically, right? And eventually, you're going to have memorized this formula. Now, flashcards are really good for this, and you can use physical flashcards, which I really liked using. But there is one advantage to using an app. So there's this app called Anki where you can put your flashcards in there, and then the app will keep track of which ones you're getting correct and incorrect, and it'll show you the ones that you're getting incorrect more often, so you waste less time on the concepts that you already know, and the app handles all that for you with the algorithm. The downside of that is that now you're on an electronic device where you can get distracted by other apps. So the benefit of physical flashcards, in my opinion, is that it gets you out of the whole space of this distracting screens and just in the study zone entirely. My fifth and final tip is that you don't actually need to be a perfectionist while you're studying this stuff. So this curriculum and these concepts are very, very difficult. And because of that, the minimum passing score is estimated to be around 53% by 300hours.com. So what that means is that you don't need to ace these exams and get a 90% on everything. You just need to exceed 53%. Obviously, it'd be better to get far higher of a score that would really signal that you have the acumen for the field. But in terms of just passing, there's something that I think has to be said about diminishing returns, where I believe that if, let's say there's one subject that you are currently scoring a 40% on in mock exams, and then there's another subject where you're currently scoring a 60% on in mock exams, I believe that it is easier to take the subject that you have a 40% in and increase it 20% to 60% than it is to take the subject that you already have a 60% in and increase it to an 80%. So I think as you get to higher scores, it becomes harder to get the same improvement in that topic. So in this idea of this diminishing returns, I think it's best to focus on your worst subjects and not try to be a perfectionist in the ones that you're already really good at. That's it. Those are my 5 tips. Good luck studying, and subscribe to my channel for more content related to the FRM.